as a party of drunken soldiers ran amok, destroying everything they could lay their hands on. The innkeeper, reeling from a blow to the head, whispered to the potboy, "Fetch Robin." The potboy crept away, fearful of the soldiers, until he reached the safety of the trees. Then he ran through the forest. As fast as he could, he threaded his way among the trees, searching for Robin Hood. At last he came upon the outlaws' camp and paused, panting for breath. Scarlet grabbed him by the shoulder.
"What do you want, eh? What do you want?"
"Gone mad they have, smashing everything at the inn, knocking the master and the mistress about."
Robin frowned.
"Who are they? Gisborne's men?"
"No, strangers."
Robin looked at the other outlaws, and they swiftly picked up their weapons and set off through the forest to the inn. They reached it to find the innkeeper recovering consciousness outside. He muttered angrily as Robin and Tuck went to help him up.
"Brabant sons."
Robin gazed at the wanton destruction all about them.
Why did they do all this?
Their idea of a good time. I welcomed them. Gave them everything they wanted. They drank too much, went wild. I couldn't stop them. Thought they were going to kill us all.
You were lucky.
Little John came out of the inn.
The place is a shambles, Robin. They must have hacked it apart with axes.
Robin looked grim.
Brabançons. Land pirates. The worst kind of mercenary.
Scarlet stiffened and walked apart from the others. Little John looked thoughtful, and Robin lowered his voice.
It was men like these who killed Scarlet's wife.
With eyes blazing, Scarlet demanded to know where the Brabançons were heading. A frightened villager pointed towards Nottingham. The outlaws wanted to follow them, but Robin shook his head.
They're mounted, and we'll never catch them. But we'll get them, Scarlet, I promise you, we'll get them.
In the main hall of Nottingham Castle, Sir Guy Gisbourne was questioning 4 royal foresters when Abbot Hugo came storming in.
You are holding one of my servants, Gisborne. I want him released.
He's been released.
When?
After he was sentenced.
Hugo looked at Gisbourne in disbelief.
You sentenced him?
Certainly. I caught him poaching. I had his right hand cut off.
My God, Gisborne.
I would remind you that as sheriff...
Sheriff? You're not sheriff. My brother appointed you his deputy, and in my opinion, he was out of his mind.
Gisborne was not intimidated by the abbot's scorn.
As sheriff, my lord abbot, I have the right to administer justice as I see fit.
With great difficulty, Hugo controlled his temper.
All right, Gisborne. All right. It's obvious the whole thing's gone to your head. You've mutilated my servant, and I don't intend to let the matter rest. But when my brother returns from London, I shall tell him.
The abbot noticed the 4 foresters and demanded to know what they were doing there. Gisborne explained that he sent for them to account for the sudden increase in poaching. Hugo gave a dry laugh.
No wonder they call you Guy the Gamekeeper. Have they given you an explanation?
Gisborne turned to the most senior of the foresters.
Well?
The forester shifted his feet uncomfortably and twisted his cap in his hands.
You don't rightly know what to say, my lord. There's always more poaching this time of year on account of the blessing.
The blessing? What are you talking about?
It's an old festival the people of Sherwood keep, sort of a celebration like to the coming of summer. Goes back, it must be hundreds of years. It begins tonight.
Does it?
Yes, my lord, and there's feasting in Sherwood, and... Well, you see, nothing can be killed during the time of the blessing. No blood must be shed.
So they shed it beforehand? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, my lord.
Gisborne leapt to his feet.
And you let them?
No, my lord, but it's hard to prevent.
So you turned a blind eye to it? You know when this orgy's about to take place, and so you keep out of the way?
No, my lord, we do.
Be silent!
Gisborne looked thoughtfully at the foresters and spoke more quietly.
You say the festival begins tonight?
Abbot Hugo looked at him with a smile.
I wouldn't do anything silly, Gisborne. Sherwood's no place to be after dark.
Do you think I'm afraid of shadows?
No, I don't. But what about your men?
Soon, my lord abbot, I shall have men who fear nothing.
In a space in the forest known as Hearn's Clearing, the villagers from the surrounding countryside congregated for the Feast of the Blessing. Fires crackled and the carcasses of deer roasted over them. Marion and Robin entered the clearing and were greeted by a tall, powerful man, a blacksmith from Wickham village named Edward.
Welcome to Hearn's son and his lady. Blessed be.
Robin and Marion returned the blessing, and Edward led them through the friendly crowd.
We've invaded your kingdom, Robin.
Sherwood should belong to everyone.
Even Sir Guy Gisbourne? No, not him.
Robin and Marion and the other outlaws joined the villagers at table for the feast, and afterwards there was music and dancing. Faster and faster played the musicians, and faster the dancers circled round the central fire. At last the music reached a crescendo and came to an end. The dancers fell to the ground, exhausted. The fire flickered and flared and eventually died down, while everyone sat in groups, waiting silently for Hearn to appear. Robin and Marion sat with the outlaws in their own group, and Robin whispered softly,
He's coming.
Slowly, a pair of antlers appeared above the brow of a small hillock, and gradually Hearn himself appeared, and stood on the grassy mound, mysterious and awesome in the moonlight. Silently, the villagers and the outlaws fell on their knees, and 4 small girls with circlets of daisies around their heads walked slowly towards the little hill. Then they too knelt down and placed gifts of bread at the feet of the man called Hearn, the man wearing the antlered mask of the old religion. Very slowly, Hearn raised his arms in the ancient blessing. In the great hall of Nottingham Castle, Gisborne and Abbot Hugo were eating at table when the Brabançons arrived. Gisborne was delighted to see them and greeted their leader enthusiastically.
Bertrand, welcome to Nottingham. It's been a long time.
The 2 men embraced warmly, and Bertrand frowned as he looked into Gisborne's face.
Indeed it has. Hey, you've been in the wars, I see. And you've put on weight.
Not an ounce.
You have, you know. You're a damn sight thinner at Argentan.
We starved at Argentan.
Maybe. But we fought like tigers, didn't we? Back to back, knee-deep in blood.
Bertrand drew his sword, and he and Gisborne fought playfully until, to his embarrassment, Gisborne was disarmed. He picked up his sword and continued with his reminiscences.
Remember the massacre at Montauban, when you were trapped under your horse and I...
Bertrand waved his sword dismissively.
No, that wasn't me. You're thinking of someone else. But I've never forgotten when we stormed Chauvigny and you fell off the siege ladder and killed 2 of my men.
He roared with laughter and his followers joined in. Then he noticed Hugo and asked to be introduced.
Your servant, my lord. Bertrand de Nevers.
The abbot regarded him sourly.
Yes, I've heard of you. What are you doing here? My dear friend Gisborne asked us here.
Hugo looked distastefully across at Gisborne.
Brabançon cutthroats. Watch your tongue, priest. Don't talk to me like that, Bertrand de Nevers. I'll have you excommunicated. You're too late. It's already been done.
Abbot Hugo rounded on Gisborne.
I want these men out of Nottingham.
Bertrand laughed.
But we're here with a purpose, and we're staying. I know your purpose. Rape and pillage.
Gisborne interrupted.
Who's to blame for most of the deer killed in Sherwood? With the help of Bertrand and his Brabançons, I shall kill Robin Hood and everyone who supports him.
The next day, Gisborne, Bertrand, and the Brabançons galloped into Wickham village. They wheeled their horses between the huts and rounded up the villagers to face them in the centre. Gisborne told them the reason for their visit.
I'm searching for venison, and the means of acquiring it. Search the village, Bertrand.
Edward the blacksmith came forward.
You're wasting your time, my lord. There's nothing here, I swear it.
You swear it, do you? Or what that?
Gisborne pointed at an altar decorated with flowers. In the centre lay a pair of antlers.
The antlers of a deer. That's proof of poaching.
Edward protested.
Those antlers are nigh on 100 years old. If you want the man who killed that stag, you'll have to dig him up.
The Brabançons searched through the huts, hurling the villagers' possessions out onto the muddy ground. But they found nothing. Gisborne moved towards a large ash tree which had flowers piled against it. It was the sacred tree of the village, and Edward looked apprehensive. Gisborne misinterpreted his look.
So that's your hiding place, is it?
No, my lord! The tree is sacred. Sacred to Herne.
Search it.
Bertrand and his men moved forward. The villagers retreated and gathered round the tree, linking their arms. The Brabançons pulled the people back, punching and kicking them. The villagers did not fight back, and at last they were all dragged away and the tree was searched. But again, nothing was found. No bows, no arrows, not even the smell of venison. Gisborne was furious.
You'll burn in hell, you filthy heathen!
He seized a battle-axe and began to attack the tree with it. Edward begged him to stop, but Gisborne pushed him aside.
I'll teach you to worship trees, you blasphemous villain!
As the axe bit into the tree, Edward prayed softly to Herne.
Herne, Lord of the Trees, let him know your power. Let the terror of darkness hunt him down and hold him in the coldness of death.
In the outlaws' camp, Robin suddenly stiffened. As the axe bit into the sacred tree, he sensed that something was amiss. Marion asked him what was wrong.
Gisborne.
The outlaws went at once to Wickham and found the ash tree felled and the villagers nursing their wounds. Robin was very angry and prepared to go after the Brabançons, but Marion stopped him. Edward explained why.
It's the time of the blessing. If you shed blood, then Herne's blessing will be denied, and the harvest will fail.
Robin was about to argue, but again Marion intervened, reminding him softly that the villagers thought of him as Herne's son, and their beliefs were very real to them. Robin was confused and frustrated, but he agreed.
No bloodshed. Herne forbids it.
Scarlet was disgusted.
Tell that to the Brabançons. Hey, what say you, Little John?
Aye, Robin. Go to the Brabançons. Tell them it's the time of the blessing. Tell them we can't fight back. Tell them we're powerless for 2 whole days. They'll raid every village.
I know they will.
But what about tonight? What if they come into the forest?
Robin thought for a moment.
Then we capture them. Unharmed.
Gisborne and the Brabançons rode through the countryside, burning, pillaging, and killing those villagers who did not get out of their way quickly enough. Now Gisborne had the zeal of a religious fanatic destroying the heathen. The outlaws found Gisborne resting with the Brabançons by a stream, and Robin attempted to lure them into a trap. From the other side of the stream, he fired an arrow over their heads to announce his presence. Then he and Little John stood up and shouted across to Gisborne.
Pay off the Brabançons, and you can all leave Sherwood alive.
Gisborne was puzzled.
Why? Why let us go? We're sitting ducks. He could have killed us all. Why didn't he?
Then realization dawned.
It's the time of the blessing. He can't shed blood. We're safe. Get them.
Gisborne, Bertrand, and the Brabançons mounted their horses and charged across the stream after Robin and Little John. The 2 outlaws led them on towards some trees where the rest of the band were ready to drop nets upon the mercenaries. But just as they were about to reach the trees, Gisborne reined in his horse.
Stop. No further. Why only 2 of them?
Bertrand understood.
An ambush.
Yes, it had to be. They can't spill blood till after the blessing. We'll ride back to Wickham and eat, and then we'll find out where they hold their heathen rights.
Robin watched them go.
It seems as if Gisborne has learned to think. That makes him dangerous.
Gisborne and the Brabançons entered the village and demanded food. Edward the blacksmith was strangely agreeable.
All you want, my lords, apart from venison.
The villagers wined and dined the mercenaries very well, and they began to enjoy themselves as the shadows lengthened and the evening drew in. Edward approached the table respectfully.
My lords, the mummers, the maskers have come.
Gisborne didn't understand.
A play, my lord.
Part of your heathen festival, is it?
No, my lord. There ain't no harm in it.
I'll be the judge of that.
The mummers appeared to the cheers of the villagers. They were the outlaws, heavily disguised, their faces blackened, carrying wooden swords. Robin stepped forward as St. George.
In comes I. St. George is my name. With this great sword I mean to win this game. If I could meet the Saracen knight here, I'd beat him and bail him and stick my sword in his ear.
The Brabançons cheered and Little John galloped forward on a hobby horse.
In comes I, the Saracen knight, just come from the foreign land to fight. Come to fight St. George the bold, and if his blood runs hot, I'll make it cold.
Robin and Little John circled round and round each other, getting closer and closer to the armed men at the table.
Battle to you I call, to see who on this ground shall fall.
Battle to battle, with thee I pray, to see who on this ground shall lay.
The two outlaws started a mock fight with their wooden swords and were cheered on by the villagers and the Brabançons. At last, Little John ran Robin through, and he carefully fell to the ground close to Gisborne. Then Scarlet appeared as the doctor, carrying a bag.
In come I, a doctor good, and with my hand I'll stop the scarlet blood.
What can you cure?
Anything. I can cure a magpie with toothache.
How?
Chop its head off!
The Brabançons thought this was the funniest joke they'd ever heard and roared with laughter. Scarlet searched through his bag.
I got a bag to cure all ills. Itch, stitch, palsy and gout. Pains within and pains without. Rise up.
Robin sat bolt upright.
Once I was dead, and now I'm alive. Blessed be the doctor who did me revive. Now!
Robin jumped up with his wooden sword, and he and all the mummers set about the Brabançons, who were so surprised that it wasn't long before the outlaws had knocked them all senseless. Gisborne was tied to the tree which he had cut down, together with Bertrand and the other mercenaries. Robin sympathised with Gisborne while he took off his mummer's costume.
It'll be dark soon, Guy. A pity you'll miss the blessing. You're badly in need of one.
Little John laughed.
We'll be back in the morning to decide what to do with you.
Scarlet already knew what he would like to do with them.
Might cure all your toothaches, eh?
Gisborne gave a roar of rage.
I'll kill the lot of you.
The villagers lit torches from the fire, and with the outlaws formed a ragged procession, leaving the village in happy and festive mood. Gisborne watched them leave and turned to Bertrand, who was struggling with the ropes that bound him.
You're wasting your time. He'll never get free.
My dear Guy, I don't intend having my throat cut.
When the outlaws and the villagers arrived at Hearn's clearing, Scarlet sought out Robin.
What about Gisborne and his mates, Robin? You can't let them go.
I can't kill them, can I? They're prisoners.
Then I'll do it.
Prisoners?
Scarlet shrugged his shoulders.
We killed everyone we captured when I was a soldier. Here, you've spared Gisborne twice. Ain't exactly proved himself grateful, has he? Of course, you could always smack his bum and send him back to Nottingham. Only if you do, he'll hang everyone in Wickham.
If we kill Gisborne in cold blood, we'll be no better than he is.
Well, what makes you think we are? What about the men-at-arms we've killed? How do you feel about them? If you kill Gisborne, you'll be doing the world a favour. And as for that bunch of mercenary scum, The sooner we send them to hell, the better.
Robin shook his head.
We can't do it, Will.
Then you better come up with an answer. Because if you don't, all these people are going to die.
The music started and 2 village girls dragged Will Scarlet off to dance. Robin stared after him. What was he to do? Back in the village of Wickham, Bertrand had succeeded in freeing himself. He rubbed his raw wrists and looked across to the 2 villagers who had been left behind to act as guards. He put his hands back behind him and called out to them.
Water! Please, water!
The guards looked at him, and one brought over a jug and held it to his mouth. With a single blow, Bertrand felled him to the ground and swiftly dealt with the other who came at him with a quarterstaff. Then he released Gisborne and the Brabançons.
What on earth would you do without Bertrand?
His men cheered him and fetched their weapons, which were still in the village. Gisborne thought about their next move.
We must find the meeting place. There'll be fires, dancing, singing, the smell of food. It'll be simple. If they can get through the forest without horses, so can we. Come, let's go.
In Hearn's clearing, the villagers were silent as Robin performed the simple ceremony. He wore a crown of leaves and raised a chalice above his head.
May Hearn the Hunter, Lord of the Trees, protect us.
He drank and passed the chalice to Edward.
This drink seals the bond between us. Between we of the forest and you of the village. Between the outlawed and the oppressed. Blessed be.
Everyone in the clearing echoed him, and then the dancing began again. The sound of the music and dancing easily led Gisborne and the others through the forest to the clearing. They waited just beyond the edge as Edward called for silence.
My friends, soon Hearn will come before us as he's done since the beginning, to bless us and make us fruitful. Us and our animals and crops. So, like we did last night, let us sit quietly under the trees and await his coming.
Still concealed on the edge of the clearing, Gisborne pointed out Robin to Bertrand. His men loaded their crossbows and started to crawl forward. Gisborne stopped them in a fierce whisper to Bertrand.
No, not yet. I'm going to kill their god in front of them. He'll need more than a doctor to resurrect himself.
They waited quietly while the villagers waited also. Then they saw an antlered figure mount the hillock and stand silhouetted against the night sky. A whispered Hearn went up from the villagers. Bertrand took up his crossbow and took careful aim. He let fly the bolt, and it hummed across the clearing and hit Hearn in the thigh. He fell to the ground. Yelling madly, Gisborne and Bertrand led their men charging in upon the villagers, killing anyone who stood in their path. The outlaws tried to draw their weapons, but were hampered by the villagers attempting to get away. Robin struggled through the mass of panic-stricken people to help the injured Hearn. Gisborne saw him reach him, but then his view was obscured by the fleeing villagers. At last, the confusion subsided a little, and Gisborne was able to make his way to where he last saw Robin and Hearn. But neither were there. He looked wildly around and called out for Bertrand. Then he saw Hearn in the distance, moving away from him. He plunged into the forest after him. Sometimes he lost sight of him, but then Hearn would appear briefly among the trees, but always ahead of him and always out of reach. On and on he ran, led by the mysterious antlered figure, until at last it went out of sight and did not reappear. Now Gisborne realized that he was hopelessly lost in the vast green wilds of Sherwood. But in a small hollow far away in another part of the forest, Robin removed a pair of antlers from his head. The injured Hearn, from whom he had taken them, was having his wound dressed by Marion, and he congratulated Robin.
You played your part well.
I know the forest. Gisborne doesn't. He's lost.
Scarlet stepped forward eagerly.
I'll finish him.
Hearn, the mystic, put out a hand to restrain him.
Leave him to the forest. You see your god become a man. An old riddle, my children. There is nothing to fear. The blessing has been made.
Deep in the forest, Gisborne stumbled on wildly. In his imagination, he seemed to hear voices whispering, whispering. He tried to push himself on, but he lost his balance and fell. The wind got up and seemed to call the name of Herne. In panic, he clutched at his throat. He couldn't breathe. He fell down on all fours, moaning and panting. Forgive. At last, 2 monks found him wandering, and he was taken to St. Mary's Abbey. The abbot looked at the sobbing wretch.
I warned you, didn't I, Gisborne?
Having lost Gisborne, Bertrand decided to take his Brabançons away from Nottingham. They called at the same inn that they all but destroyed on their way there, but Robin and the outlaws were waiting for them. In a great fight, they soon killed all but Bertrand. He and Robin met sword to sword. Bertrand laughed.
You certainly brightened up the day. Where's Guy?
Sherwood's taken him, as I will now take you.
As Robin gained the upper hand, Bertrand seized Marion, and with his dagger at her throat, forced her onto his horse and leapt up behind her.
Try to stop me and she dies. She'll be something to remind me of Robin Hood.
He galloped off down the track. He was a very small target by the time Robin took up his bow and loosed an arrow. It hit Bertrand between the shoulders and he fell dead from his horse, pulling Marion with him. She rose unsteadily to her feet as Robin ran to her and embraced her.
Listen to me, and mark what I say. If any Brabançons ever come to Sherwood again, I swear by Herne the Hunter, they'll be buried here.